There he is.
Peter, I'm sorry to make you wait.
Oh, no problem. I have this nice chunk between classes.
Oh, you started today? You're not supposed to start till tomorrow. Oh, you're at AVA. Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the USC. I see the USC.
I figured I'd rep it. My dad was wearing this, but last night he was like, this just doesn't fit me right, but you can try it. So it fits me all right, I think.
That's cool. Yeah, it looks great.
Can you also record on your end, just in case something freaks out? I think I have to give you permission. Allow to record. There we go.
Okay. We can both record simultaneously?
We can both record. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I don't know.
I could avoid some lawsuits if I did
that. You sound good to me. Do I sound all right?
Yeah, you sound good. You look even better.
Hey, thanks. Well, this is great. Thank you for coming. I'm super excited to have you and just to catch up with you because it's been a while since we've actually
it has been. Yeah.
So for podcast reasons, why don't you tell everyone who you are and what you do for a living?
Okay. All right. Hi, I'm Rod Gilfry. I am Peter Barber's voice professor at USC, but he just finished his master's, so he's off into the big new world. I'm a professional opera singer. I also do musicals and recitals and cabaret and stuff like that. I'm a professor at the University of Southern California. I'm also an amateur bartender, and we'll probably get into all that stuff.
I hope we do. I really hope we do.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about your career first, just because I know a lot of people watching this and listening are going to be musicians and singers. Yeah. So how about you just give us a rundown about kind of how you started, let's maybe back around USC time, and then where your career went from there and where you are now.
Okay. Well, I don't think my path wasn't typical young American opera singer, because I didn't do any of the programs. I didn't do any I did do one summer program at the Music Academy of the West, which I know you are intimately familiar with.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't do like Marilla program or the Mets program or anything like that. I already had a wife and a child, and I was like, I don't want to do these anymore. No more student things. When I finished my master's at USC in '83, I was like, I'm done. No more student. If I don't make it as a professional, then I don't. I'm going to go out there and do trial by fire. Just put myself out there and learn by doing.
Yeah.
So soon after my master's degree, well, not that long. It was a few years after my master's degree. Let me back up. Actually, right after my master's degree, I got management. A manager in New York named Thea Disbecker. I think their agency still exists, although she's been gone for a long time. And she was German and had a lot of contacts in Europe as well as the United States, but she did primarily concerts, which is what I was interested in because I wanted to not be gone all the time. I already had one kid and we were planning on having a couple more. And so I thought that the ideal situation would be, no, we didn't have a kid yet, did we? Almost. Oh, we had a kid soon after that. I thought the ideal thing would be to do stuff on weekends and come back during the week, like people who play concerts, instrumentalists. I worked with Midori. She was at USC for many years, and I talked to her about what she does, and she was just gone on the weekends, and she'd go off wherever and play a concert and then come back and teach all week. Perfect. I'm like, I can't do that because operas, we rehearse for at least 4 weeks.
Right.
You got to be there. Anyway, so I started doing concerts, but I realized that the really high level concert singers were really successful opera singers. And so I thought I got to make a career in opera. So I did an audition tour in Germany and Austria and Switzerland. And I got some offers from a couple companies, from Frankfurt Opera, Hamburg Opera. And I took the one in Frankfurt, which started actually a year later because it was with the incoming intendant, Gary Bertini. And so I had another year to sort of get myself together and, plan for the big move. It was the same time that the Los Angeles Opera was starting up.
Right. You
And
were there right for the start of that. Yeah.
yeah, I was there for the very first season, first night I was there. I sang in all three of their first three productions. And what was cool is I got this contract with the LA Opera to be very the smallest of small roles, but they the head of the opera, Peter Hemmings, he said, you should go to Europe. You should go there and build your career. He was so cool. It was so cool. It would have been in his best interest to keep me there. But he kept on bringing me back. He said, if you go to Europe, I'll bring you back every year for something.
That's
And
awesome.
he kept to his word. And we were over there for 7 years. And every year I came back
Wow.
to do something. And my roles got bigger and bigger until I was doing like title roles and like, Barber of Seville and stuff like that. So that was really cool. We finally we moved to Europe in 1987. Went to Frankfurt. We were there for 2 years. Then I got a contract in Zurich, essentially taking the place that Tom Hampson was vacating there.
Wow.
We were there for 5 years, and then at the end of that time, it was like I was singing pretty much everywhere, and it didn't matter where we lived. And there were times I even came back to California to sing in LA and left my family in Switzerland because now my kids were in school.
Right.
And my wife's like, there's something wrong here. You're going home and I'm staying in a foreign country. What's up with this? And I'm like, no, you're right. So we decided to move back. We moved back in 1994. And yeah, it's been great. We moved to Rancho Cucamonga, California
And you've been there since 94.
since 94. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We moved in across the street from my wife's sister and her
Okay.
family, which was great because they had kids the same age as ours. And we had 3 kids by then. And, the cousins just loved being together. It was so worth it to come back to see
Yeah.
those cousins playing together. Oh my
Mhm.
God. And to have family dinners again. Oh my God.
Uh-huh.
It was fantastic.
So after that, did you continue working in Europe or did you mostly
Yeah.
stick with the States?
No, it's cool. I kept on. It's funny. I didn't have any kind of a commitment from the Zurich Opera, but they kept bringing me back for 1 or 2 productions a year. And now that finally dried up because they changed administrations. I did do 2 jobs with the new administration, but that hasn't. Don't have anything coming up with them. But yeah, that was cool. It was really great because that was my foothold back in Europe. Was the Zurich Opera, and I sang in Vienna. I sang in Hamburg. I sang in London a few times, and
And so when you were there, were you in the ensembles of those houses? So did you sing a
yeah,
bunch of roles? So you were on like a fest contract?
it was it started out well in Germany in Frankfurt. It definitely was a typical fest contract where they'd
Okay.
say, okay, you're a lyric baritone, which means you're going to sing the Barber of Seville, and you're going to sing Papageno, and you're going to sing,
Right.
all these things. And they said, because this is all your Fach, right?
Hmm.
But they were understanding when I'd say, I don't think I can sing that. Or maybe this is a little too heavy for me. Or, they'd go, okay, all right, well, we don't want to make you do something you don't want to do. So, work on it with one of our coaches, see how it goes and make a decision.
That's great. I've heard if you go over there and you're not pretty clear about what you can do and can't do, they'll have you sing everything.
Yeah, I didn't experience that. I've heard horror stories about how, I have to, my contract says I have to sing what's in my Fach, and I can't say it's not in my Fach. I can't sing it, but they're making me do it and it's killing me. That
Hmm.
I've heard of that happening. Frankfurt was an A house, and they had a very, what can I say? Gary Bertini was Israeli. Now, the lady who was sort of the head of the casting and everything, she was German, but she was really cool, very understanding, very nice. Um, so they had more of an artistic approach to it, not quite such a administerial kind of, follow the rules kind of approach.
That's
That was
great.
weird though, because about 2 weeks before my debut in Frankfurt, the opera house burned to the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there was an arson. Well, it was set by a human, but I don't know. They don't know if it was intentionally an arson fire or not. But there was a guy who was sort of camped out in the basement, and he started a fire under the stage, and it got out of hand. I think he probably meant to burn it up, but in any
Some
case,
some guy with a big issue with the opera house, maybe.
I don't know. He was at the time the Berlin Wall was still up, so East and West Germany were still divided,
Mm.
and they had this like prisoner exchange or citizen exchange, whatever, where, the people who wanted to be back in the East who got stuck in the West, I don't know why they'd ever want to go back, but they had this kind of exchange thing. And this guy was under this plan. This guy was brought out of East Germany and was living in Frankfurt, but apparently didn't have a job, and it was getting cold. It was like October. Yeah, I think around October or late September. And he found his way under the opera house and made a fire to keep warm or something. I don't know. It was weird. Right under the stage. Something doesn't seem right with the story. Anyway, the whole thing burned up.
Wow. 2 days before.
Yeah. And so a lot of people jumped ship. A lot of my American colleagues who had contracts with the opera house, they're like, I'm out of here. I'm not sticking around. Because it was going to take them weeks and weeks to just figure out what they were going to do with the season. And it would take them at least a year or two to rebuild the opera house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, it took them 2 years and the thing was rebuilt. And I never sang in it because it was, yeah, I left before. So I sang in this little, it was what's known as the Städtische Bühnen in Frankfurt. It's a little cluster of 3 stages, the opera house, the Schauspielhaus, and one other small theater. So we took over the next largest theater, which was this black box. I think it sat about 1,200 people or something like that. And then the actors from the Schauspielhaus, the playhouse, they moved into a warehouse or an abandoned train station or something like that. Everybody got moved around. And at first I was kind of relieved by one aspect of that. That's that we were going to be premiering this piece called Eurydice 1 and 2 by John Cage.
Oh boy.
And it was like really experimental. It was aleatoric. It was crazy. It's like all of the things that the singers would sing, all of the stage pieces, all of the action, all the decorations, everything was decided at random by applying this random number generator to pages of the dictionary. And then they would, it would say page, 642, and they'd go there, and then John Cage would read down until he found something he could use, like stick, right? And so stick, we'll use a stick. And so I ended up, and then we could choose our own arias from a list of 64 operas in the public domain. And so I chose to sing the Toreador song. And it got linked up with a Mexican cowboy and sticks. And so I ended up singing on a headstand. So I ended up singing the Toreador song, partly in a headstand, which was, you ever try to sing on your head, standing on your head?
No, thankfully I've never had to.
It's sort of like a recipe for an aneurysm. It's horrible.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Throwing sticks while dressed as a Mexican cowboy. In any case, we got to the final rehearsals of this. Then the fire happened. That was going to be the big opening of this new administration. The fire happened, and I remember going to the opera house when everything was put out, when they were taking everything apart, and they pulled out this massive piece of stage with a crane, and it had this grid on it, this white grid, and the grid was for our blocking. It was like you enter at A26, and at 2 minutes and 32 seconds. You move to B3, and then we just moved around. All these positions were also chosen at random by this computer, and there was no conductor. It was just a digital clock. The orchestra played randomly selected pieces of operatic scores that were put together at random. It was crazy.
I'm not sure.
When that thing was pulled out, I'm like, thank God, I hated this piece. I was like, we won't have to do that. But no, the first thing that they rebuilt in this little theater next door was that production. So we ended up doing it.
Oh my God. I was about to say, I don't think the house would last after that anyway.
I know.
People over there don't people in Europe tend to like the newer productions? I feel like houses do them more often. Something more avant-garde and risque.
Yeah. They tend to like that stuff. You don't see hardly ever now at least in the German-speaking countries, you hardly ever see a traditional production of something.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe more in the South.
Great. So that's some good coverage of your opera career. Let's jump over to musical theater.
Yeah.
We'll like the first half talking about music stuff, and then we'll talk about more fun stuff later.
Okay, whatever you want. Well, I did musicals in high school. That was the first time I did musicals, and I remember actually our church put on musicals, which was weird. There was no religious connection at all, but we had this music director, Ganya Trotter, who is still she's in the same retirement community as my mom. And she's probably about 90 right now, but she's still a friend of ours. Anyway, they put on these musicals. We did The Boyfriend, Anything Goes. We did a couple melodramas like Under the Gaslight. I can't remember what else we did. The Music Man. So I was Harold Hill in The Music Man, and then my future wife Tina starred in a lot of these things because she was a really great performer, gorgeous young woman, really good voice, good dancer, all that stuff.
I did
That's
not
where
know.
we
I did not know she performed.
yeah, well, she's a kindergarten teacher now, but she still performs, in a way. It's like every class is like a performance
Didn't
when
know.
you're
Yeah,
a kindergarten teacher.
I've heard.
But
I've
yeah,
heard.
that's how we met. That's how we met doing musicals together.
Very cool.
And then I did a musical called Lil Abner in high school. And that was when I had that was the high school production. And it was the first time I actually felt what it was like to captivate an audience, to have them really paying attention, and to have them hinging on every word you say, in the dialogue and whatever,
Yeah.
how to time a punchline, how to deliver stuff so that they really liked it. And I was like, oh wow, I hadn't planned on doing that for a career, but this is really cool. This is really cool. um, and then I had an incredible um, music program in high school. Our choral program, led by Don Briniger, who actually is a resident of Rancho Cucamonga, has been for a lot of years, was just amazing. We sang on a level that was like a fourth year collegiate choir. It was just, and I have recordings to reprove it. We're just like, oh my God, we were so good, and I learned so much that I planned on being a music teacher. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
My dad was a music teacher. My mom was a teacher who also had like children's choirs and stuff. So it seemed very natural. And then when I got into college, I went to Cal State Fullerton here in Southern California, California State College, and started taking voice lessons. And that's when everybody's like, you've got a really good voice. You're going to be a singer, right? I go, no, I'm going to be an educator. They're like, no, you're going to be a singer. No, I'm going to, no, I don't want that kind of a life, gone too much of the time. I want more stability. And so I started doing voice competitions and winning most of them. And they're still like, you're going to be a singer. No, I'm not going to be a singer. I'm going to be an educator, going to be a high school choir teacher. Then I started down that track, and I did a music education degree, and then I started doing student teaching in high schools, in local high schools, and realized that the program that I had was exceptional, and that these other programs they paled by comparison. And the teachers were not just choir teachers; they'd sometimes have to teach history or, you know, uh, shop, which I didn't mind that, but a lot of other things. It's like they didn't have dedicated music teachers in a lot of these schools because of budget cuts and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe I don't want to do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
handling a big class of teenagers who are just goofing off and throwing spit wads and shit. I was like, I don't think I want to do this. So I went to uh, I went to the Music Academy of the West that summer, and I'd gotten married in the meantime to my wife. Now we just celebrated 40 years. 40 years. A couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Oh my
Wow.
God. I say congratulations to me. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. At a boy. At a
Yeah.
boy.
Oh yeah.
That's
It's
really
huge.
amazing.
Yeah. Nobody could come to our big party, but it was still fun.
Still very special.
Yeah, it was really cool. Anyway, so I went to the Music Academy of the West, and I met Martial Sanger.
Ah,
He
yes.
became my teacher for the next 6 years. And I was asked to come up there. They were doing a production of Romeo and Juliet, and the guy who was singing the father of Juliet got sick. He had some liver problem or whatever, and they asked me urgently if I could come fill in. Already they'd been in session for a month, and I was like, "What is the Music Academy of the West?" I had no idea what this was, and Marcel Sanger called me. He had a really heavy French accent, and I could barely understand what he was saying. Yes, my dear Renée, if you would consider coming up to Santa Barbara to do the role of Capulet. And I'm like, I don't know. And anyway, so I decided to go, and I was there for half of their summer, and I did that role and started studying with Sanger, and it was fascinating. He was such an artist and a real master of his craft. You know, even his bearing, he had this like regal bearing, and he would look down at you. I mean, he was intimidating. He was very sweet, but he could be very intimidating. So then I got a scholarship to go to USC to do my master's, just like you. But I wasn't a TA. I wasn't a TA. I just got a full tuition scholarship and didn't have to work as a TA. That's what we did back then. Don't ask me how.
I'm jealous.
It hasn't happened since. But I didn't live on campus. We lived in Claremont, and I just drove in, 2 or 3 days a week and did my classes. I never did the opera at USC because it would take too much time. I did some kind of a chamber music class instead. Wow. That fulfilled the ensemble requirement. I got around a lot of things. I told my teacher at USC that I wasn't going to study technique with him, which I can't believe I said. I said, look, I'm with Marcel Sanger in Santa Barbara, so I do not want, I'm going to take my technique from him. I don't want to listen to technique. He's like, oh, well, okay, I guess we can just do coaching.
That's pretty generous of him.
Generous of him and ballsy of me. I can't believe
it. Yeah.
Crazy. Anyway. Oh, you haven't said a word, man.
Okay, so Music Academy, how much classical voice had you done before Music Academy? Because that's obviously, it's not for musical theater. I mean, it's for opera.
Oh yeah, we were talking about musical theater. That's what it was.
Doesn't matter where this goes.
Let me just go on with the musical theater thing.
Yeah.
Sure, I continued to do musicals. LA Opera actually put on Oklahoma.
Oh wow!
Way back when, and it was fantastic. And I was Curly, and it's like the most fun I've ever had on stage. They don't do musicals anymore. They didn't since then. That was our last one. But I did a lot of musicals. I did Carousel down in San Diego, and then I did in Paris. I did The Sound of Music, and I did a couple productions of The Most Happy Fella at Ravinia and one at UCLA. And then my big one was I did the national tour of South Pacific a few years ago for a whole year. By then I was teaching at USC, and I took a year off to do it, and that was cool. Anyway, so yeah, I sort of didn't do musical theater for a long time. I started going straight into opera after I got my master's, pretty soon after I got this agent I described, and then I went to Europe for 7 years. And so musicals sort of fell by the wayside, although I did operetta, like I did The New Moon in a production in New York, the City Center Encores. I did The Merry Widow, like all over the place, LA, Zurich, other places.
How much has your rep changed since you were my age to what you sing now, in terms of roles?
Yeah. My path has been kind of weird. I don't know. I'm not a like long range planning kind of artist. I'm sort of like, did I get a job today? Anybody going to offer me a job? And then the phone, my agent will call. Oh, so and so wants you to sing something here, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I could do that. It wasn't like, this is my year because I'm going to do this year. This is my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan. I'm going to plan my progression as an artist like this and start going into more dramatic repertoire at the age of 42. With this role. I never did that. So I sort of just let it happen, which is kind of not that good of an idea because I haven't been very well defined. I ended up doing modern opera pretty early in my career.
Okay.
And in 2008, I guess it was, I was asked to do Stanley Kowalski in the Streetcar Named Desire in San Francisco, opposite Renée Fleming. Brand new piece written by Andre Previn. And it turned out to be a really big deal. It was really cool. They had news reporters from all over the world come to see this. They'd really publicized it beautifully. And that sort of put me on the map as, the guy who can do modern opera really well and acts well and can do complicated music and bring something to it so it doesn't just sound like complicated music.
Yeah.
And so that was like the first one. Now I've done 12 new operas.
My gosh.
Yeah. And so as I was doing that, I did experiment. I mean, I had some very good management at the eventually, and I was with Matthew Epstein
Really?
many years when he worked at Columbia Artists, and he suggested. I mean, I wasn't happy with some of the decisions he made, or some of the things he insisted I should do. I sort of made a foray into doing more dramatic repertoire, but I really wasn't ready. Technically, I really wasn't ready for it. And then like the modern repertoire sort of took over my calendar. And so I ended up doing like a few of the traditional roles, like, the Count and Figaro, Barber of Seville, Così fan tutte, first is Guglielmo, then is Don Alfonso, and then doing Merry Widow and stuff, a lot of that lighter repertoire and a lot of modern stuff. I've done some really hard modern stuff like St. Francis of Assisi, which is a 5.5 hour opera. That's like crazy difficult. I did that in Amsterdam. I did Wotan, the Rheingold Wotan in Japan a few years ago. So, I've sort of run the gamut, but I haven't done a lot of really big repertoire, and actually not that much of the standard stuff like the big Donizetti and more dramatic Rossini roles and Verdi. I did Don Carlo a couple of times, but had never really followed it up with that.
Do you enjoy the challenge of the new works? Do you really enjoy doing the new pieces more so than standard, or is it just how the chips have fallen?
Do I like doing them more? I don't necessarily like doing them more, but I do enjoy the challenge of it. And actually, one of the things that I'm attracted to with a new piece is there's no precedent. I've always been kind of intimidated, like singing Posa and Don Carlo. There's a precedent of great singers in the past, and they're all on record, and you're just like, I don't think I can do it that well. I'll do what I can do, but how can I compare to Robert Merrill, And so I always found that very intimidating. I always put a lot of pressure on myself to measure up to the tradition and to the precedent. And so that was kind of disabling in a way. I couldn't just go out and do my own thing. There are quite a few singers I know that are very confident in their own take on how to do something. Singers who will enter into repertoire they really should not be singing because their voice is not the right voice for it. Like big Verdi roles where they don't have a big Verdi sound, where it sounds like a lyric baritone trying to add heft to the sound. And sometimes where they try to sing roles that are too low and they have nothing down there, but they just kind of courageously go through it and say, nope, this is how it's done. I've never been that kind of a singer. I've always been extremely adherent to what's on the page and aware of the history, aware of the expectation for what the voice should sound like. And I've been asked to sing things like why is it not coming to my head? Like Scarpia. I can sing Scarpia. Scarpia's not a high role. You could sing Scarpia, but do I have the requisite sound of the voice to really do it? Can I keep that kind of a snarly sound going through the whole thing? I could do it in my own way, but would it measure up to Tito Gobbi? I don't think I could. I don't think my own awareness of my own belief in what the role should be keeps me from doing it.
I think that's contributed to keeping your voice so healthy, though. Like people who hear you now are are blown away by how fresh you still sound. I remember talking to Marilyn Horn after a competition at Music Academy, and she said she had a bunch of her colleagues had just heard you sing Don Alfonso and Così, and they were saying it's the best you've ever sounded,
Mm.
which is amazing. So I think you not pushing into rep super hard and being so aware,
Yeah.
and you were always practicing before voice lessons at USC, so you're constantly working on your instrument, and to me that's inspiring, and I think says why you have kept your voice in such good shape all these years. So I think that's really a testament to your character.
Teaching at USC for the past 12 years, 11 years has really made me very aware of my own technique, of course, because I am trying to teach it to other people.
Yeah.
And I think that it's had a beneficial effect on my singing. At least it certainly made me aware of what I want in my own sound and my own technique, because it's the same thing I expect in other people's
Yeah.
technique and sound. So I think it's had a positive effect. I just wonder if I had taken voice lessons for 12 more years with some crackerjack teacher, where I would be right now, because the teaching is always a really exhausting and time consuming.
That's what that's what I noticed teaching for 2 years out there. Was I always felt like teaching lessons was 10 times as draining as rehearsal, just
Yeah,
vocally. And then
yeah.
mentally too, it's exhausting. So did you find a rhythm, or did you eventually get to a point where it wasn't super taxing and you could teach all day and then still have some
Yeah,
gas left?
yeah, exactly. I did. I remember my first year, I would have no voice at the end of the day, partly because I was demonstrating constantly, and
Yeah, yeah.
I was demonstrating the wrong way as well as the right way.
Hmm.
So that was really hard on my voice.
Yeah.
And I'd get a tenor who couldn't sing a high A flat, and I go, "Oh no, do it like this." And I would do it like, 10 times in a row. And then I'm suddenly like, wow, that took a lot of voice.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I discovered how to really back off, let them do most of the work, demonstrate more healthfully for myself. And so I could actually still have some voice left at the end of the day and some energy left at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's also tough, at least for the student teachers. Maybe your situation was different, but we got a mostly new batch of students every semester.
yeah.
So like once you've built up rapport with a student, you can kind of sit back and you can give them a look and they'll know what you want them to do. But a new
Yeah.
student, you have to like go back through all the beginning steps, and you do
Right.
have to demonstrate more because they just don't know what they're
Right.
looking for.
They have no
No,
idea. I
no
know.
idea.
That's true.
All right. What have you been doing to have some fun, non-music related during this interesting year we've had?
Well, I had all kinds of stuff planned. I was going to be, um, well, that would have been still coming up. Everything got canceled. So I had
Yep.
recitals and concerts and stuff that got canceled. So I suddenly had a lot of time. And even though in the spring, even when we got shut down by COVID, even though I was still teaching, I still had more time because I live an hour's commute away from LA. So every time I go in to teach, and I have to account for traffic. So if I was going to teach at 9, I'd have to leave my house at 6:30 in the morning to get there on time.
Jeez.
And it was
It was long days. It was
brutal. And then I'd
really
come
long
back,
days.
and then I'd drive back in traffic. I finished teaching at 5. You know what the traffic's like in LA at 5 p.m. on a weekday. And so then I'd
Brutal.
often stay an extra hour at least to practice. But
Yeah.
already having gotten up at 5:30, I was already pretty much toast.
Yeah.
It was tough. Anyway, so this made that easier because if I have a lesson at 10 o'clock, I can show up in front of the Zoom camera at 5 minutes to 10.
Right.
Now, we did make there this kind of teaching online though has required a lot more time than doing it in person. It requires a lot more to make it effective, requires a lot of preparation. So I
Yeah.
completely revamped how I was teaching by having written assignments every week and having my students, assigning them particular vocalises and things to record and then they would send me videos of themselves singing, and then we look at them together, which is a great tool. Did you do that as a TA?
I did. I mean, it was your idea when we were working together. Had to have
Yeah,
them send me a video. We review it
yeah,
at the start and then move
yeah.
on.
Because
Yeah.
you can see a lot. If I were to sing for you right now, you could see exactly what's going on in here.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and it's more, and then they can see as well. They're looking at a recording of themselves, and you look at it together, and you're like, you see there how you tensed your tongue right as you got to that B natural,
Mm-hmm.
or you see how your posture's not good. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
so yeah, so that's added to the time that it takes. I have to prepare for all the lessons much more. But fun stuff I've been doing, like we have this porch swing in our backyard that looks out on our backyard. Wooden swing, seats two people, two or three. And over the years, it's gotten sort of broken down. And I was like, I'm going to rebuild that thing. My wife's like, it's falling apart. Now the wood is split. And when you sit down, you get splinters. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. How long is it going to take you? I think I can probably do it in a couple of weeks. Couple of weeks? That long? I said, well, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. And she's like, okay. So it ended up being more like several months is what it ended up being. But like I decided, instead of having the bolts go through the wood and then supported by these chains, it's constantly bending and torquing and splitting the wood when you have two people on there. And so
Yeah.
I decided to make a metal undercarriage that supports the whole thing. And
Smart.
my wife bought me a welder, a MIG welder, which is like an arc welding machine, several years ago. And I never used it. And I always felt guilty about it. And I'm like, I'm going to learn how to use that MIG welder. A MIG welder is one where you have an arc welder. First of all, an arc welder uses an electric current, that a spark that runs between the welding object and this gun. And that melts the metal, but also transfers metal from, in the case of a MIG welder, of this tiny little welding rod that's on a spool inside of the machine that gets fed through the handle and comes out. And so actually the spark is going from this little rod, or Peter as the case may be,
I was waiting for it.
to the welding surface, and it melts it and transfers metal to it at the same time. And then you get a weld. Well, it's hard as hell. It's just like it's my God, it's so precise.
It already sounded complicated with the description, and I'm sure it's even more complicated when you actually have to put it into practice.
You have to keep moving at exactly the right rate. You have to have the wire feed at the right rate. You have to have the right amount of voltage and amperage going in that spark, depending on the metal and the thickness of the metal.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, if you stay in one place too long, you burn right through the metal, and then it's wasted. And then the hardest thing about it is you're looking through this welding mask, the glass of which is so dark that if you hold it up to a bright sunny day, you can't see anything. It's good for looking at solar eclipses. You can actually use it for that, but you can't see anything until the spark starts, which generates such an intense light that it'll burn your retinas like that. Even if someone's arc welding across the street, you should not look at it, because it puts out really harmful ultraviolet light that's extremely intense. So the whole thing is lit by the spark, but you can't see the spark. So you've got this helmet on, you get it all ready to go, and then you got to go and get this thing to go over your eyes, and then you're blind until the spark lights, but you can't move your hand in the meantime, or you don't get a spark, or you start welding on the wrong part. Hard as hell, but I finally got it figured out.
So were the months making this swing, was it more learning how to figure it out, and then once you figured it out, it didn't take so long?
Both. There was a big learning curve with the welding, and then with I had to fabricate. I replaced every single part of the entire swing except for the back supports. So I was in there routing with my router. I was routing these, the curvature shape for the seat and how the boards sit into it.
Mm-hmm.
I had to find the right thickness of lumber to do all this. I ended up buying redwood like beautiful, very beautiful clear redwood. I hated to paint it when it was finally done.
Mm.
But then I needed to paint it because it's an outdoor furniture. And I went back and forth on that. I finally bought a paint sprayer and turned out great. It's beautiful.
Very
But it took a
nice.
long time. Long
Are
time.
are you a handy guy in general? Do you like fixing things when they break down on your own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like before I had a Tesla, because there's nothing to fix on a Tesla. It's just got batteries and motors. Before I went on my previous cars, I did most of the work myself on my cars, and I fixed plumbing and carpentry and finished things and tiling. And right now I've got a part of my bartending thing, which I'll talk about. I have
Yes.
a double kegerator in my bar outside that stopped working, and I'm like, crap. And I've had trouble with it before, so it's built in underneath the bar top, which is tiled with this beautiful blue tile. But when they built the bar, they didn't get quite enough clearance, and so to get the thing out, I have to take off 2 rows of tile, then pull it out, do whatever I need to do, fix it, whatever, put it back in, and then retile it. And so I spent a whole day carefully removing this tile because I can't replace it. They don't make it anymore. Carefully
No.
taking each piece off. I finally got the whole thing out, and I think I'll be able to repair it. But
A double kegerator.
yeah.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, a kegerator is basically a refrigerator for beer kegs.
Could have guessed that much.
Yeah. And a double just means it's big enough to it has 2 taps, and you can put 2 what they call sixth barrel, which is 5.5 gallon kegs of 2 different types of beer in there. And then they have these tubes then come out of it's pressurized with a CO2 tank.
Mhm.
And then the lines come out and go up into the tower, which I have mounted on the top of the bar with the 2 taps.
So you have actual taps. So you're like a
Oh
okay.
yeah,
Do you have like a full service bar out there?
completely full service bar.
Wow.
A 70-pound insulated ice chest. I've got hot and cold running water. I have the kegerator. I have a back bar. Like my bar was only 18 feet long. It was really not quite large enough. So for all the supplies, the extra glassware, I have a glass freezer in a back bar that's about 10 feet long, and they're curved. It's a beautiful thing. They're just gorgeous.
So
Um,
are you gonna invite me for a drink when everything opens back up?
oh, absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is the mixology bartending, is this also a quarantine endeavor? Or have you always been interested in the finer things in life?
I've been doing mixology for a number of years, and it started a few years ago. I remember we went to a restaurant in Claremont, and they had a pumpkin pie martini on the menu, and I ordered one. I go, pumpkin pie, that sounds good. I ordered it. It was horrible. It was, it didn't, I'm like, okay, this is drinkable. It's sweet. It has alcohol in it, but where's the pumpkin? And I asked the bartender, what's this made with? They go, oh, it's made with caramel liqueur and I don't know what else. There's no pumpkin in it. Or at least if there was, you couldn't taste it. And I'm like, I could do better than this. And I
Come on.
started brainstorming with Tina, like, what could we do? And she's like, we could do actually use pumpkin pie, and we could use like pureed pumpkin. And I was like, yeah, you know what? And so I invented this pumpkin infused vodka, and using like a spiced simple syrup, and ended up using some melted vanilla ice cream. And what else is in there?
Sounds tasty.
Oh, it turned out it's absolutely delicious. It's topped with whipped cream and freshly grated um, nutmeg, and it actually tastes like a bite of pumpkin pie. And so I went from there to the apple pie martini, and that turned out just as good. And then we used to have this so it sort of developed like that. I was like, hey, I'm developing this new cocktail. We'd all get together in the kitchen and say, what do you think of this? And they go, yeah, it's a little too sweet. And I go, okay, hold on a second. I make another one, a little less sugar. And they go, yeah, I don't really taste the apple. I'm like, what do I do about that? So I made a baked apple vodka. And then I, just like tweaking along the way, and finally ended up with this great recipe. that everybody loves. And then I remember getting a Cosmopolitan in a couple of different bars, and that's basically like a vodka lime cocktail with a little splash of cranberry. That's what gives a little bit of a red color. And I'm like, what is the red stuff? Cranberry juice. Oh, interesting. And I taste it and I go, I really can't taste the cranberry. They go, oh yeah, it's mostly for color. I'm like, I want to taste the cranberry. And so I made my own version with freshly expressed cranberry juice, like take a bag of cranberries, put them through a juice expressor, use that juice. And it's really a cranberry cocktail, cranberry martini, but I call it the Rodmopolitan.
When is the line coming out though? When is your vodka hitting the shelf?
Oh, it's not going to be commercially produced, but I have a new YouTube channel, Baritone Bartender.
No way.
It's got all this stuff on it. I've got 5 cocktails up there now with its video, so it's all the whole description how to do it. And I'm adding 2 more today, and I'm going to be adding to my YouTube channel, Baritone Bartender. I'll add another cocktail every week, usually released on Tuesdays. And I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I can tell you I'm probably the most highly respected amateur mixologist in Rancho Cucamonga. I wouldn't kid about stuff like that.
That is a title that we all want to hold.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, it's taken. You can't have it.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm glad you've found a number of things to keep you entertained.
I need to retire now so I can do all the things. No, actually, I won't make you look at it, but I'm going to bring up my list of reminders here so I can tell you what I have on the docket.
Let's hear it.
My truck, I need to repair the duct control light, replace some resistors in the fan speed controller and replace a headlight. My barbecue, I need to repair and seal the grout around the barbecue. I need to raise the TV in our bedroom with a little like wooden something or other. Fix the pool equipment hose rack. Put rubber feet on my grinder. Make some oak organizers for about 5 different drawers in our house. I'm installing a new faucet in the bar, installing in the bar freezer new fans and a vent door. I'm re-roofing my shed. I'm remounting our dishwater. I have to weld the cutting board runners on our under counter cutting. You get the idea.
That might take you all the way until everything is back to some semblance of normal.
Oh no. This is like a 2-year limit, I'm afraid. That's all I had to do. I would do it.
Do you have you been still practicing voice at all? And B, do you have contracts coming up in 2021, 22 and beyond?
Yeah, that's a good question. When COVID hit, I stopped singing. I was just like, everything got canceled. I'm like, what's the use? I had concerts with Renée Fleming that got canceled. Like, why should I practice? I had a recital. I was an hour from going to the airport to this big recital of Poulenc and Stravinsky back east. And they called me. They said, sorry, we just canceled it. An hour before I went to the airport. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to practice that anymore.
Yeah.
So I stopped. I really stopped. And I could feel my voice getting weak and flabby, and it was not good. But I'm like, what's the point? I don't need to sing right now. So I really did stop. Now, on this past Saturday, when we're recording middle of January right now, last Saturday I did record a recital. I was going to do it at the Kennedy Center. That got canceled, but the presenter decided to record all the recitals wherever the singers lived and present them on like a pay-per-view video stream. So I recorded that at the Doheny Mansion in LA, and it was a pretty big recital and with a lot of really demanding stuff. And I had to work my ass off to get back in shape in order to do that well.
Yeah.
So I started, working on that a few months ago. So I'm back now, and I do have stuff coming up. I want to point out that this recital was with a pianist who, Peter Walsh. Peter Walsh.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
and he did his bachelor's, master's, and doctorate at USC. Incredibly talented
Yeah.
guy, pianist, musician. And I chose him in particular for this recital because I wanted to present some songs that I do, some jazz versions of French art songs. Two songs by Fauré and one by Debussy that I sing the original version, then I sing the jazz version. It's really fun. They're really, really fun. And Peter's a really good jazz pianist. And so he could do everything, you know. There are not many classical pianists who can also play jazz. I mean, like,
Yeah,
you
no.
count them on one hand.
It's like two different brains for that. So
Yeah.
different.
Right.
Mhm.
So I just did that and I got paid, you know. I don't think I've been paid yet, but I'll be paid for that. So a little bit of income, tiny bit of income, you know. Then what do I have coming up? In June, I have a job with the New York Philharmonic doing a piece by Courtag called Le Fin de Partie. It's an opera that'll be done at Alice Tully Hall, semi-staged, I guess. I haven't heard.
Okay.
I'm hoping that everybody will be back and, you know, be well enough vaccinated that we can actually do it. It'll be in June. And so hopefully that'll be my next job if it happens. Everything else got canceled. I was going to the Met for Dead Man Walking next month, and that got canceled. And I had more concerts with Renée Fleming. We do this really great piece called "The Brightness of Light" by Kevin Putz, and it's beautiful for orchestra, soprano, and baritone. And we did it Tanglewood. We did it with the Boston Symphony, and we did it in Denver, and we did it in where else did we do it? Denver and I can't remember. We did one other place, and we have it on. We have a lot of those planned coming up. We were going to do it in Los Angeles this coming May. That got postponed, fortunately not canceled. So anyway, I've got that thing in June with the New York Phil. It's a huge project, and I'm actually planning on doing something. My son-in-law, Sean Slater, is a documentary filmmaker, and he's the one for my YouTube channel, the one who's been filming and editing all of my cocktail making videos.
Oh, so they must look professional then. They
look pretty good. Yeah, they look pretty good. They're still made with handheld cameras. We just use iPhones.
Oh, well, yeah.
You know, we're sort of gradually updating the equipment. I think I'm going to add a lavalier microphone pretty soon to improve the sound because they're just in my kitchen, but you know, it's a little bit distant.
Yeah.
Anyway, he suggested I've got this big Courtag opera, Fin de Partie, coming up. He said, you know, you should document your whole preparation of that whole thing. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to prep. I haven't started working on it yet. I've got 6 months. So I'm going to document the whole process of how I go about learning it, how I go about learning it, how to go about singing it, getting it in my voice, you know, analyzing it, figuring out the translation. It's mostly in French, that kind of stuff. Might be interesting.
Probably very interesting. People do like seeing behind the scenes things, especially from people who are proficient at whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Because you always see the final product, whether it's an athlete or a singer or anything like that, and you just see the final product. But it's really interesting to see the hours that go into that tiny fraction of, you know, what that person's going through.
Yeah, my wife and I've been watching The Voice. You ever watch that?
Yeah, I've watched the show. Yeah,
Peter, maybe you should go for The Voice.
People have
thought about it.
I have thought about it.
Yeah,
I've thought it. I would sing something like country though. You know, I wouldn't sing opera.
You'd have to do both.
That would be exciting.
You know the countertenor John Holliday?
Yeah.
Have you followed him on The Voice?
Is he doing The Voice?
Oh, he did. He didn't win, but he came very, very close to winning. Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah.
When he first sang, they were just like, and all of them turned around going, who is this? And Kelly Clarkson was just like, what? It's a guy? Because he's a countertenor, you know? And he was singing like this R&B and stuff and really high stuff, but with this uncanny tone. You're just like, what voice is that?
Yeah.
And I sang with him in Eurydice, in the LA Opera production of the Eurydice. And when we first did the workshop, he would start singing. And I'm like, what what is your voice? You sound like a countertenor, but then you sound like a baritone. What's going on with that?"
Uh-huh.
He goes,
Uh-huh.
"Yeah, it's always been sort of my thing, you know." Anyway, you should totally think about that. In any case, so yeah, after that, let's see. Not sure exactly. I've got another job. Fortunately, I have another job at the Met next spring doing
Mm,
Hamlet. Not the Thomas Hamlet. This is a new one that we premiered a few years ago at Glyndebourne. Um, it's a new modern opera, Hamlet by Brett Dean. Terrific piece. And I sing the role of Claudius, the evil king who killed his brother.
perfect.
Yeah, and it's a really good piece. Really good piece.
Is that a baritone role?
Hamlet's a tenor, and
Hamlet's tenor.
my part's a bass baritone.
Okay. Bass baritone.
Yeah. So I've got those things coming up. Then some of my concerts with Renée have been rescheduled. I'll be in Houston doing Dialogues of the Carmelites a year from now, next December.
Okay.
So things are coming back online. More,
Yeah.
recitals and stuff. Some things have been rescheduled instead of just being canceled outright. Like my LA Opera concerts with Renée Fleming were rescheduled for next year. So
it looks like things. I'm not sure about summer. I'm hopeful, but I'm not sure about summer, especially because the U.S. is rolling out vaccines so slowly. But I think by fall we should be okay. Like I'm hoping to be doing a show at AVA in the fall.
Oh, good.
I'm hoping that will turn out to be the case.
Do you know what it is?
We don't know yet, but maybe Don Giovanni sometime soon.
Oh my God! Would you be Don or Leporello?
I would be the Don. That's
Damn straight.
That's what I'm studying now. That's what I'm studying now. The kind
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, it's really, and I was intimidated first looking at it because it seems like it's high. Like I never thought of myself as a Don Giovanni,
That's
but
not.
it's really sitting well. I mean, the only tricky parts are like the wine aria and De Vieni. But I'm figuring those out too. And the rest, I mean, when the voice is feeling good, I can sing through the whole role and not be that tech. So I think it is really going to be a great fit. And it's probably the most fun I've had studying a role.
Oh, it's awesome.
I mean, it's such a fantastic piece. So,
the Finca del Vino, I think, is actually a little bit easier for a slightly lower voice.
Really?
Because of those those E flats where they fit are a little bit different,
Yeah,
I think you'll be great with that.
Yeah, I don't try to. I mean, you can. The risk is that it just turns into a bark fest and like your mouth just at the top. But what I'm doing is keeping it a little.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know if I'd even call it covered, just like slightly into the turn.
Yeah.
For all those little moments, and then at the end of it, it's fine. It's like as long as I'm supporting well, it's fine.
I found that to be the hardest thing of the whole show was Finca del Vino. Partly because it's so fast, and because everybody wants it so fast, and they want it to be frenetic, like and that's not good for your voice.
No.
The first time I did Don Giovanni, I wanted to embrace the precedents and know what everybody else did. So I bought 12 recordings of Don Giovanni back before Spotify or Apple Music, where you had to have a physical CD. And I've got them lined up on my shelf, 12 recordings. Mine makes number 13. But it was interesting to see the difference in tempos of Finca del Vino. Really interesting. So, I mean, the slowest one, I can't remember who was that Italian singer. It was like, Finca del Vino, calda la testa. Maybe it was Siepi.
Probably Siepi, yeah.
Yeah. It was just like super like jolly almost,
And it sounds easy to sing it that way.
Yeah.
But conductors almost never take it that tempo.
No. Nicholas Harnoncourt told me, he said, this should be a little bit faster than you're actually able to sing it. And I was like, we're there, man. We're there. Please, can we slow it down? He goes, no. I like the feeling you bring to it. It's so like, ugh. I'm like, oh my God, it's killing me.
Yeah. The role is a hard enough sing. You don't need to add that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay grounded. Anyway, it's been a joy. I find myself laughing at the recits while reading through. And
Oh, so much fun, so much humor.
It's
Oh my
so,
god,
yeah, he's
so funny.
just a great character.
Yeah,
Such a
great character.
fantastic character.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm hopeful we'll do that. I mean, they're grooming me a little bit for it. Maybe not next year, but
yeah,
everyone, when I first got there, all the coaches were like, "We don't like you singing any kind of buffo rap. We think you have a very elegant sound. We're going to
yeah.
start really throwing like bel canto rap and
Great.
the more elegant roles." I mean, so that's really where I'm headed right now, which is very exciting. Very
Hey,
exciting things.
I want to ask you a question
Uh huh.
about your own voice and technique.
Sure.
What you have done with all of these covers of these songs, you know, where you sing all the parts and you sing down to like G below low C and up to high B's or
hmm
higher in falsetto.
hmm
Um, has that taught you about your voice?
Yes, it has expanded my limits and taken away fear of pushing myself towards those limits.
Yeah,
The super low stuff is just kind of a trick. It's called a chest fry, where it's like it's in your fry, but there's still enough control and power
yeah,
and resonance that it just kind of sounds like an extension. I think we might have played it. We played around with that in lessons occasionally.
yeah.
But really, the actually no joke. In the last month or so, I'm making a big breakthrough in really stopping to try to like micromanage everything so much, because like a lot of my technique is settled now, and if I can just trust it and really sing and lean into the singing, then the voice opens up and I have 5 times as much endurance. So that's how I'm able to sing, sing through the whole Don Giovanni in just a practice session by myself, is because I'm just like,
Yeah,
fuck it, I'm gonna sing it full out
yeah.
and stay relaxed and just trust that my voice can do it. And my God, literally in the last month, like over winter break, I started experimenting, and I'm telling you, the voice has just grown like crazy in just a few weeks.
That was
And
amazing.
yeah, I just find myself not worrying about it as much.
That is so cool.
Even like having this, like if we had this podcast 2 months ago and we had
Yeah,
been talking for an hour and a half, I might
yeah,
be a little worried about my coaching that's coming up, because I'd be like, oh, I'm going to be a little tired. Now I'm like,
yeah,
my voice can handle it.
yeah,
The voice can handle so much if you let it. So
yeah.
that's been a big discovery of me doing these covers and expanding my range and that kind of thing.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's what I found for myself too. That was one thing about musical theater. It wasn't just a side gig where I used a different technique. It actually taught me how to sing my classical repertoire better.
Yeah.
Like at the end of Joey, Joey, Joey from The Most Happy Fella,
Yeah.
there's this
Mm-hmm.
long sustained F natural.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Joey, boom, Joey, Joe. I don't know if that's the right pitch, but it goes ba, and the orchestra goes da ba 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 bum bum ba bum, and you're sustaining an F through that whole thing.
Yeah.
And when I did this, I did it at Ravinia, um, and I kept on working on that note, working on it, working on it. I was like, I really want to start it with no vibrato. I want to start it really like piano and then make a crescendo that gets bigger, 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 all the way to the end. And I'm going to let the vibrato loose right at the end. And I discovered I could do it really easily if I just like totally relaxed,
Yeah.
kept it right here. That I would just go, Joe, like nothing.
Yeah.
And then it would, and every time I nailed it every time. And I was like, damn, I should do that for instance, the F naturals in the drinking song in the chanson à boire, the Ravel. I should do that in the Toreador song. I
Yep.
should do that. And I'm thinking all these big F naturals. Why don't I sing it like that? You know? And so
Yeah.
I started taking that, what I learned from musical theater, taking it back into my operatic repertoire and going and thinking, yeah, that's how I should be doing it. Totally
It's
sounds
really
sounds
it's
good.
really interesting how that works. If Of course, when you're starting out, you have to learn all the fundamentals and you have to get your technique settled. But then once you have it, if you can just relax and trust it, the breath support is going to be there. And if you can just keep all this, you talked a lot about what do you say, being like a foghorn on the back of a ship, just this big column of sound coming
Yeah,
out.
Yeah.
If you can just be that solitary unit, just send
Yeah.
to the air, and it
Yeah.
just the folds just do what they do.
Right.
Man, that's
Right.
been money. So I've been
That's
exploring that
great.
lately, and it's been really wonderful for me.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. All right, sir. I think I've taken enough of your time. I think we're actually
Oh,
at
great.
about an hour and 5 or an hour and 10 minutes,
Okay.
which is pretty amazing.
Um,
So it's been so good to talk to you,
you too,
and
man.
really thank you for coming on the podcast. You're one of my first guests, and you're my first Zoom guest. So you have been
Oh, yeah.
you've dove right into the mix. This will be the first podcast I've done via Zoom. So
Okay. Well, I just want to tell anybody who's listening, check out my website, rodgilfrey.com. And if you check out rodgilfrey.com/mixology, I've got my recipes there and connect and links to the Zoom videos. Or you can go to my YouTube channel, Baritone Bartender, and I've got a bunch of cocktail videos on there. I don't know what's going to happen. Do I know what I'm doing? Uh, I think I do most of the time,
hmm
but I'm the first to admit that I don't know everything.
I'll get all that information from you afterwards, and I'll
Okay.
put it in the description, stuff like
Oh,
that.
perfect. That'd be great.
All right, great.
Okay.
This has been super fun. Yeah, hopefully you'll come on again. Maybe in like the summer, something
Sure.
like that. You can come on. We can chat more because there's still plenty of things we could talk about.
Yeah. Okay, man.
All right, thanks
Good.
so much.
Take care.